Well, I'd like to welcome everyone to our fourth and final session of the Eyes on Every Ballot Election Observer Training, sponsored by the Virginia Project. I'm Ned Jones, and I'm the Election Integrity Director for the Virginia Project. The Virginia Project is a partisan political action committee that is dedicated to helping to rebuild the Republican Party in Virginia. As a part of that effort, for the last three Thursday nights, and now tonight, we're conducting 30-minute training sessions for election observers. We hope that our training will enhance all the other training that's available for election observers in Virginia, conducted by the state, the Republican Party, the political campaigns, and many other groups who are interested in winning the election this year. So far, we've covered what happened in the election last November and why we need an army of observers with eyes on every ballot. In all, 133 plus in-person early voting CAP centers for all 45 days of early voting and absentee processing, and in all 2,451 precincts on election day for the election that starts now in 15 days. We've covered the duties of the three election observers. Those are officers of election, poll watchers, and seasonal workers, and how you apply for each position. Tonight we'll discuss what you can do as a respectfully aggressive observer during the 45 days of early voting, the CAP processing of mail-in ballots, and on election day. As always, please hold your questions and comments to the end. I know that many of you are experienced election observers, and I look forward to your input. Before I start, I would like to mention one thing I've mentioned for the last 2 weeks, and that's the mailing of 2.1 million absentee ballot applications by an organization called the Center for Voter Information. Now, these ballot applications are out there, and I've asked anyone who receives one to send me a copy, a scan, or a photo, because we're tracking the names of people who are getting them. And we believe it's a scheme rather than an honest system of getting ballots to voters. Now, there's another organization that's sending out absentee ballot applications, and some of you may actually have received something from Honest Elections Project. This is a conservative organization that's mailed out approximately 800,000 absentee ballot applications to targeted Republican voters in Virginia. I'm pleased that someone has finally countered the nefarious activities of the Center for Voter Information. Now, this mailing by Honest Elections Project is a legitimate, true attempt to get applications in the hands of Republican voters. It is not a nefarious scheme as we believe the other one is. And so feel free to use it if you do receive one. Okay, so the first position we're going to talk about this evening is the election officer. The election officer is a paid position, and the main duty is to ensure that the election is conducted according to state law. And we can have election officers at absentee ballot processing in the CAP. We can have them on election day in the precincts and on election day in the CAP. According to state law, 50% of election officers should be Republican and 50% should be Democrat, where the chief election officer in each location is going to be from the governor's party or a Democrat. Now, the state of Virginia, through the registrar's office, will train the officers of election. Training will also be offered by RPV and the Youngkin campaign. But I have a few things that I hope enhance the training that those of you who become election officers will receive. The first thing is during processing of absentee ballots in the CAP, it's very important that you as an election officer observe the condition of the ballots. They have to be folded. There is no absentee ballot that is not folded. And then does it look like the bubbles on the ballot were filled in with a pen, or could it be a printed copy? All of these things should be considered irregularities and brought to the attention of the chief election officer. Also, observe the chain of custody of the ballots. They should be in sealed containers. The counts of the ballots in the box should match the actual ballots processed. As the ballots are removed from the envelopes, try to check out the envelope for completeness. I did learn this week that there is no check of the signature on the outside of the envelope against any signature when the registrar receives the envelope. All they're checking is for completeness, not that it matches anything. As a matter of fact, I also found out that when a voter sends in an application for an absentee ballot, the signature on the application is not checked against anything. All that's checked is the last four digits of the social, the name, and address. If those agree with the record, then the absentee ballot is sent out. Follow any ballots out of the room. If anyone takes any ballots out of the pre-processing area, follow those ballots to see what's done with them. Do not leave the processing area if you're told to by the chief. We heard all these stories around the country last year where our observers, our election officials, were told to leave and the counting continued. You do not have to leave if ballots are being counted. We urge you to be very respectful, but do not let the chief bully you around. We are not going to let the Democrats run our elections anymore. I was a poll watcher last year, and I was treated horribly by the chief. And due to inexperience, I didn't handle it very well. But I'll be prepared this year. And again, we want respectful, aggressive observers. Be respectful, but do not leave if you're asked to leave. That's a big one. And we're not going to let the Democrats run our elections. Okay, on election day, you must check all the numbers on the machine all day long, that it's set at 0 in the beginning, that all the numbers match at the end of the day, because as an election officer, you'll be there all day from opening to closing. Watch for voters with no ID. In Virginia, you don't need a photo ID. You don't need any ID. You can use a utility bill. If you don't have that, you sign your name on an ID confirmation. To me, if someone shows up and ends up signing that ID confirmation, that's an irregularity, that's an incident, and that's something that should be written up with the name of the voter. I'm told that's all the information we can get is just the voter's name. Well, if that's it, you fill out an incident report with the name of that voter. Also, this happened to me several times last year. Watch out for voters who, when they approach the polling book, the computer, are told they've already voted and they respond, no, they haven't. That's an incident. Get the name of the voter and we can track that down, because what'll happen, they'll have to vote provisional, and that vote won't go through the machine, but it'll go in the envelope and it'll be adjudicated later after the election. But we want the names of anyone who says, when they're told they've already voted, that they have not. Because the other thing may be, it's not the voter. In other words, the voter has voted, and now someone is showing up and they're voting with that voter's record and saying they don't have an ID, signing the ID form, and getting to vote with a provisional ballot. Monitor the ballot box activity. If anyone is around it that shouldn't be, if you see any kind of cables running from it that shouldn't be there, that kind of activity. Monitor the drop box activity if you have one outside the polling place. Now, last year, I think they had one at most polling places. And because I was a poll watcher alone, and I don't believe we had a Republican election officer, the ballot box, the drop box, just sat there and people were putting ballots in it all day long. That's something we should split our coverage so that somebody's inside watching the drop box, if there is one, and someone else is inside watching what's going on. The other thing to monitor is something really interesting to me called curbside voting, where a voter sits in a car, somebody runs in with an ID, grabs a ballot, runs outside, and the person votes. Now, we can observe this with our outside person who's watching the drop box, but you have to monitor the curbside voting. And just let me add something at this point. We're not accusing anyone of anything. We have absolutely no proof of fraud by any voter that voted fraudulently. But the system is so loose, there's many, many opportunities for fraud to happen. And so we think that by watching these activities, we're able to mitigate the opportunity for fraud. The other thing to watch for is for voters being assisted to vote. Now, that's totally legal. They can ask for assistance from an election officer. They can have someone with them who is assisting them to vote. But they have to fill out a form, and you have to monitor that activity. One thing that you need to watch for is people assisting people who are voting with a provisional ballot. When you vote with a provisional ballot, you're to be put at a table, a separate table, by yourself to fill out your ballot and the affidavit that goes with it. And then that's put in an envelope separate from all other ballots. It is nowhere near the scanner because that ballot is going to be adjudicated later after Election Day. And then the last thing, and this is something you'll learn in more detail from the other training that you'll receive as an election officer, is be sure that it is being conducted according to the provisions of the law, which we won't cover tonight, but you'll get that in other training. And again, be very respectful, but do not let the chief bully you around. I want to repeat, we are not going to let the Democrats run our elections anymore. Okay, poll watcher. The poll watcher is an unpaid volunteer partisan position. The main duty of the poll watcher is to observe the manner in which the election is being conducted and to report to Republican officials and record any irregularities on incident reports. We can have poll watchers on early voting days, which is 45 days, and election day. And the duties are pretty much going to be the same both times, both situations, and very similar to the election officer. However, the communication from the poll watcher is only with the election officer. They don't talk to the people who are handling the poll book. They can't talk to voters. They can't touch any of the equipment. They can only observe what's going on. So they're checking all the things that the election officer is going to be checking. They're watching for voters without an ID. Again, that becomes an incident report. They're watching for the voters that are told they've already voted. They're watching the ballot box. If we have two observers in a precinct, we should split them, one inside and one outside. They're watching curbside voting. They're watching all the things that the election officer is watching, but there's a difference because if they see something, they can call the hotline. We've been told by the RPV that they will have a hotline this year that will be manned by a human and that someone will answer the phone. It won't be you leave a message and it won't be a text that's not answered. So the difference, the big difference between the election officer who is going to take irregularities to the chief and the poll watcher is that the poll watcher can contact the party immediately when a situation has to be resolved. Again, we want the poll watchers to be very respectful, but don't let the chief bully you. And we're not going to let the Democrats run our elections. We're going to be respectful, aggressive observers. And the last position is the seasonal worker, where you actually work in the registrar's office part-time. It's a paid position during early voting and on election day. Those activities of the seasonal worker are going to be directed by the registrar's staff. I was called today by my registrar's office, and it looks like I'm going to become one of those a couple of days a week. And they were starting to tell me about the different jobs that they would have me do. But I can see that it's not going to be me picking a job. They're going to assign me. But we have eyes and ears. If we have a break and we see something irregular going on, we can call the same hotline, or we can tell the poll watcher to call the hotline about something that just doesn't seem right. You know, it's the old phrase, if you see something, say something. So if you're one of those seasonal or temporary workers and you see something that looks irregular or untoward, on your next break, call the hotline or let the poll watcher know if we have one there, and hopefully we will, what's going on, and they can report it to the party. So that completes our Eyes on Every Ballot training for the 3 election observer positions. If we get to the 100% coverage that we keep talking about, we'll have eyes on every ballot and we'll mitigate the potential for fraud. All of these sessions have been recorded. and they will be available to anyone for distribution. We want to share our videos with everyone. And now I'll be happy to answer your questions. We want to try to keep it at 30 minutes. We've been pretty successful at that for the last 3, but I do want to hear your questions and your feedback.
Ned, any information at all yet of when the training will be conducted by Chris Marston?
Well, they had one this evening that I found about yesterday. I found about it yesterday, and I'm sure they'll have more, but I don't believe there are dates scheduled yet, but they definitely will. And they're combining this year election officer with poll watcher.
Ned, I had a question. Yes, I had a question, Ned. Do you know, can we take pictures with our phone? If we see anything like with our phone that looks suspicious, maybe the ballot, the absentee ballot's not folded, or anything now, are we allowed to use our phone to take pictures?
You can use a device, but you just can't take pictures.
Oh, you can't take pictures?
No.
Okay.
That would be great if we could, but you're not allowed to take pictures.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question. Is there a reason?
Yes.
Is there a reason that the RPV can't have a sign up for email, a mass email that says, look for the training date or come to our website? I mean,
Well,
I guess I'm not understanding the disconnect. People keep asking, when is the training? Why is it they can't put that information out or allow us to sign up to be notified when there's training? I mean, anything. I don't understand.
Yes, I can send the link. There is a link now. It's affiliated with the Youngkin campaign to sign up to be a poll watcher. If you want to be an election officer, you sign up with your registrar, and then you're recommended by the local Republican unit chairman. But there is a link now in the to the website for the Youngkin campaign for poll watchers. And once you're signed up with them, you'll be advised of all training and when it's going to happen.
That would be great. I'm sorry, where do you find that? You're going to post it?
We'll send that out after. We have the list of the attendees tonight.
So, but back to my original question, what is with the RPV? Why can't they send something out? I guess I'm at a level of frustration here. I mean, they're supposed to be the leaders here in Virginia, right?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. They did hire a new gentleman. He just came on board a couple of weeks ago for election integrity. I know he's involved with the training. The training is definitely sponsored by the RPV. They're the host of the training. It's just that the sign up is being handled through the campaign, and I'm not sure where that came from.
Ned, this is Josephine. I signed up in Fairfax to be an election officer, and I was told that I would be getting a email when training was going to be available, which would probably be in about a week or two.
Yeah, what I did is in my county, I kept calling them. I called them maybe 3 times, and finally they called me today and said that I would become one, which was great news. So be persistent if you don't hear anything.
No, I'm all set. I've already registered, done the whole kid and caboodle, gotten the email saying, you're accepted. Okay. So I'm in. I was just commenting on the training that people are talking about, because for Fairfax, it's not out yet. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Ned, quick question following up on what Gail asked about taking pictures. If you can't take pictures, can you take notes?
Oh, yes. Actually, you can. What you're probably going to get from the party is it's called an incident report, and it's the name of the voter and what happened. You write down the precinct, your location, and so forth. And I heard that they might have you go outside and text a photo of the incident reports immediately, as opposed to just collect them. Last year, I had a couple of them at the end of my shift. So they may have you transmitted immediately this year. That's something that I heard on a call last night. So yes, you can take notes. You can write things down. Absolutely. Any other questions?
When do we get the a hotline number and when to contact? How do we get that?
That's going to come from the training, which the RPV is, having. They had one this evening, and they'll have more coming up in the future.
Okay.
Ned, I have one question.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, I see a phone number there asking a question. Go ahead.
Yes, Ned. My name's Jack Sheehan. I'm down in Louisa County. I've had some neighbors ask me, is there a website that we can go to see a list of all the delegates that are running, both Republican and Democrat?
Yeah, VirginiaProject.com. We have a whole section on the candidates this year by district, and
Okay.
it's very accessible on the VirginiaProject.com website.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Actually, it's in the chat right now if you want to check the chat.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? I think somebody was trying to ask a question, maybe. Okay, well.
I just have a
yes.
quick question. Do you know how many people are registered so far on the Republican side?
To be observers?
Yeah, observers, poll watchers, seasonal workers.
There's no cumulative count of that anywhere. It's all it's all by district. So no, we don't know.
Yeah, I'm just curious, how close are we to getting an army?
Well, we don't know. I mean, what's happening is we're spreading the word, and we're counting on word of mouth, really. There's so much enthusiasm and so many people that want to do something and volunteer that the opportunity for us to have the 100% coverage is out there. It's getting the word to people. We've tried to do it through our webinars. We've recorded them all. We'll share it with anybody. There's other groups that have done training. There's more training to come. Our hope is that people hear about it, they're interested, and that they do seek out the information to become involved. Because, like I say, with eyes on every ballot, we can certainly mitigate the potential for the irregularities.
Okay, hello. I hate to sound like I'm beating a dead horse here, but last year, or 2016, I took the poll watcher training. And if it's going to all come back to your local committees and you have an inactive, inept local committee, I don't know how you're going to, what is our backup plan when the RPV system fails? Because I never was called for anything, even though I took the training. I never got my certification. I never got anything. So I don't have a lot of faith in their system. So do we have a backup plan for all the people like myself? You're looking for an army. I was willing to work 2016 and never received a call. So how many more people are there like myself who are sitting there going, okay, I tried.
Well, unfortunately, you bring up something that is a problem. And here's what I can say about that. I've been told now by Thomas Lane, who is the election integrity director for the RPV, that if any of the units, the local GOP units, are not performing in terms of what we want to do with election observation, where to let the party know. So what I've asked is, and any of you that are running into a similar situation, just let us know, or let the RPV know that there's a problem, and they say they'll take care of it. That's all we can do. You see, there's certain things that must be controlled by the party, and that hotline is something that they control. That, ad hoc groups and other organizations can't set up a hotline for the entire state. Now, they can do it in a district and have some kind of reporting system, but there is no statewide system except for the RPV. So that's what we have, and they're going to do the best they can. What they've assured us this year, they understand the problems from last year, is a hotline with a human for all 45 days where we will absolutely get an answer for an irregularity that we need to call about. And they did talk about sending photos of incident reports when they happen, as opposed to at the end.
Where do I apply as a poll watcher? Is it the RPV?
The poll watcher sign up is with the Youngkin campaign, and I'm going to send the link out to everybody so they can.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Hi, Ned. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Robin. I filled out an application to be an election officer, and I turned it in. I actually mailed it after I got it signed by the notary. And you said that if you mark like Republican or Democrat, you have to get signed off by the party or approved. Like how does the registrar's office send it to like the Republican Party, or like how do they even get my application to know that I even submitted this to volunteer for this position?
Well, what my experience was and what I've heard from others is that you apply with the registrar and you let your local unit chairman know that you have
Okay.
applied, and they'll recommend you for the job. The problem we've run into is local GOP units that aren't responsive, where you can't get a hold of the chairman and so forth. And in that case, they want you to let the upper people in the party know. And you can email me if you run into that problem, or you can email them directly. But they want to hear about local units that aren't doing what they're supposed to do for the observers. But I think the procedure is you apply with the registrar and then you're recommended by the chairman.
Okay, and I apologize if you said this earlier, but how would I know who my local chairman is?
Well, if you go to the RPV website, there's a list of
Okay.
all the chairmen by location
Okay.
in the state.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Lisa. I have two comments from Fairfax County and one question from last year. My first comment is I received an email from Fairfax County voter registrar, and they are automatically enrolling poll workers from last year. So be careful. Like if you don't know if you want to do it, they are automatically enrolling from last year, without really just with one email. And the second comment, Fairfax also sent out, they are sending out requests for assistant chiefs, which means they need Republicans for assistant chiefs in Fairfax.
Okay, well, thank you.
Can I make so Lisa,
What's
the
an
only
assistant chief? What is that, an assistant chief?
in Fairfax County, you would have only gotten that email if you had signed the oath and resubmitted your paperwork in 2021. Did you do that?
Yeah, yes, I did. But I just want people to know, because people are saying they're not getting emails.
You're right. They many are going to the spam file, and that's been why now in Fairfax County, the Fairfax GOP is emailing each election officer to let them know what's going on.
Great.
Right.
Okay.
And the second
Thanks.
comment I made was that Fairfax needs assistant chiefs,
Yes.
which are automatically have to be Republicans. They are asking, they sent it today at noon. Are you willing to serve as an assistant chief for this election? So my other question was, last year, the Democrat poll observer was extremely chatty with all the other poll workers and I reported this to Fairfax the day of and the day after, and Fairfax GOP. And, I don't know what they can do, but who do I report like the day of if I believe the Democrat observer is overstepping their boundaries?
Well, you can report that's what the hotline's for. And they're telling us that it's going to have a person answering the phone. If you see any activity that you believe to be irregular, you report it through the hotline and it's taken care of. That's what's supposed to happen. And they've assured us that they'll have a human on the line.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions tonight? Okay, well, I want to thank all of you for coming, and those that have been with us for 4 weeks. We really appreciate that. And again, take advantage of all the training that's going to be happening between now and the 17th, 14 days from tomorrow, when this election starts. And I did want to just add one thing at the end here. The Virginia Project, who sponsored this training, is totally donation funded, and that's how we get the work done that we're doing, and we appreciate anything that you can do for us. And we absolutely appreciate you being on board with the training and volunteering your time to observe this election. Remember, eyes on every ballot will mitigate the fraud. Thank you all very, very much.
Okay, thanks, Ned.
Thank you, Ned.
You're welcome. You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Ned.
Thank you, Ned.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for attending.